5,000 years ago, a man you'd call a stranger pressed a few marks into wet clay. With those marks, he decided what a single day of your life was worth. You're standing inside the largest building you've ever seen, the temple complex of Uruk in southern Mesopotamia. You've just spent 12 hours moving mud bricks for a wall that will outlive you by centuries. The scribe in front of you doesn't look up. He counts your day in small tally strokes, a 3 for the bricks, 2 for the hours, and slides a cloth sack of barley across the bench. It's the exact ration he gave the man before you and the man before him. It is the first time in your family's 300,000-year history that a number on a tablet has decided what your day was worth. When did humans start working for money? And why is the way you spend your time, the 8 hours, the boss, the ID badge, the paycheck, so much weirder than you've ever stopped to think about? This is one of the most misunderstood questions in human history, because when most people picture work, they picture something that has always existed. A man swings an axe, a woman picks fruit, someone builds a wall. But that's not work, that's just life. The idea that a stranger could buy your time, that you'd spend a third of your waking hours on tasks you didn't invent, for a person you'll never meet, in exchange for a number in a ledger is one of the youngest inventions in human history, and we know almost exactly where it started. In the late 1920s, archaeologists working at the ruins of Uruk in modern Iraq pulled hundreds of small clay tablets from beneath a temple floor. The tablets were 5,000 years old. The marks on them were not poetry. They were not prayers. They were ration lists. So many bricks moved, so much barley owed, so many beers brewed. The Uruk tablets are the oldest written records on Earth, and the very first thing humans ever felt the need to write down was not love, not war, not gods. It was a wage. Before we had stories, we had accounting. 1,500 years later, the Egyptian state built a village called Deir el-Medina to house the workers who carved the pharaoh's tombs. Archaeologists found their pay records, scratched in ink on limestone flakes. The carvers were paid in bread and beer. Twice a month, a senior craftsman drew several times an apprentice's share, and even the water carriers had a fixed ration. When the rations arrived late, as they did in the 29th year of Rameses III's reign, the workers walked off the job and refused to return until they were paid. That walkout, around 1155 BC, is the oldest recorded strike in human history. By then, wage labor had already lasted longer than the United States has existed. Around 1750 BC, the Babylonian king Hammurabi carved a stone pillar of laws covering everything from marriage to murder. Buried in the middle were the first written wage laws. A field hand earned 8 barley measures a day, a shipbuilder 11. A doctor was paid by results, a successful surgery on a free man earned 10 shekels, on a slave, 2. 300 years later in Athens, Pericles introduced pay for jury duty, 2 obols a day, and Cleon later raised it to 3. A Roman soldier under Augustus earned 225 denarii a year. None of them were free the way you think of free the Uruk worker bound to the temple, the Egyptian carver fed by the state, the Greek juror bribed to show up, the Roman soldier buying loyalty. Wage labor did not begin as freedom. It began as control. The first thing that made human beings work for money was surplus. For 290,000 years, our species lived in small mobile groups and ate what they could catch. There was nothing to count. There was nothing to store. Work and life were the same thing. Then agriculture came. Grain could be stored, and grain piles grew large enough that they had to be guarded, counted, distributed. The first wages on Earth were not payments. They were rations, handed from a grain pile owned by a temple to a worker who could not leave. The second thing was cities. In a band of 30 hunter-gatherers, you share, because everyone has a name, and the man you feed today is the man who feeds you next winter. In a city of 10,000 strangers, that breaks down. You can't keep a ledger of debts in your head for people you'll never see again. So we built a ledger that lived outside the head. We invented money, a unit of measurement that turned a day of one stranger's life into something another stranger could buy. Cities didn't just make wages possible. Cities made wages necessary. The third thing was coercion. Almost every wage system in the ancient world was tied to an obligation the worker could not refuse. Sumerian workers were temple dependents. Roman soldiers signed 25-year contracts. Medieval peasants owed labor days to their lord. In 1349, after the Black Death had killed half of Europe, the English crown passed the Statute of Laborers, the first national law to cap wages by force, in Russia making surviving peasants work for pre-plague rates so landlords could still afford them. Across thousands of years, the same pattern repeats. The wage begins as a chain, but the engine underneath all of it was harder to name. Hierarchy. From the first moment a temple could store grain, it could also rank the people who handled it. The scribe outranked the brick mover. The high priest outranked the scribe. The king outranked the high priest. Every wage ever paid is also a ranking. Your hour worth more than mine, his worth more than yours. Money put a number on something humans had always measured by eye. We didn't invent inequality. We invented a unit for it. Then around 200 years ago, the whole system mutated. The Industrial Revolution didn't invent wage labor, that part is 6,000 years old, but it invented the modern wage laborer. The factory took a peasant who had farmed his own time and turned him into a man who sold his time by the hour. In 1911, Frederick Winslow Taylor's Principles of Scientific Management broke every task into measurable units and timed every worker to the second. 3 years later, Henry Ford doubled the going wage to $5 a day, on the condition the worker accepted the assembly line. In 1938, the United States passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, and within 2 years, the 40-hour week was law. Almost everything you think of as a normal job, here are the hours, the boss, the wage, the weekend, is younger than your great-grandparents. Today you sit in a chair you did not build, in a building you do not own, doing tasks invented by people you will never meet, 8 hours a day for a number that appears in your bank account from a company whose owner lives in a city you've never visited. It's the exact same system the Uruk scribe ran on a clay tablet 5,000 years ago. Only the scale has changed. You are one of 3 billion humans living inside the largest extension of the Mesopotamian ration tablet that has ever existed. And here is the truth, the reason your job feels both essential and arbitrary, the reason it feels strange to be paid for moving your hand a certain way or sending a certain email. For 290,000 years, the only people who survived were the ones who hunted, gathered, and shared with people they knew. The brain that goes to your office every morning is still the brain that walked across a savanna for its dinner. Working for a stranger isn't natural. It was engineered by temples, by cities, by factories, and the engineering only finished a few generations ago. We didn't invent work. Work has existed forever. We invented selling it.